Well, first of all, Dr. O'Toole, you heard the description of what was described as prevalent or certainly ongoing culture at the Veterans Crisis Line. And you outlined you have these tasks to undertake due to IG and GAO reports, some of which you indicate have been completed and some which you're still working on. How is it that do you disagree that the culture or the circumstances that were described by the first panel existed?
So thank you, Senator. And let me just start by saying, I'm deeply disturbed by what I heard. It's unacceptable. I want to thank our first panel for their honesty and for their courage in coming forward with that. We need to be holding ourselves more accountable. I want to also personally apologize. It's not acceptable that these behaviors and these actions were taking place. So I have no reasons to dispute it or definitely no interest in disregarding it. This office has been reporting to me, among others, for about the past 6 months, and so I clearly look forward to our opportunity to address these issues most directly.
Do you know the Department of Veterans Affairs well enough to explain to me why those circumstances were there, what you call actions and behavior, and that they were there for a long period of time, but no one seemed to report or insist that the behavior changed? Why does it take a GAO report or an Inspector General's report to get someone's attention to do something?
I have been in the VA a long time, and unfortunately, we have not always been the best we can be and should be in this regard. I can't speak to the specifics of this. I can't speak to behaviors of individuals, of past leadership. I will convey, though, our commitment to really trying to get this right.
Dr. Watson, I don't know your history and how long you've been at the VA, but do you have an answer to the question of how can this go on and it continue until some whistleblower decides they've had enough and it needs to be reported?
Similar to Dr. O'Toole, I have been in my role since April of 2024. I'm a psychologist. I've been with the VA as a psychologist since 1993, so it'll be 32 years in September. So I cannot really explain what has happened prior to my time with the Veterans Crisis Line.
Well, sadly, it seems that this circumstance is not limited to the Veterans Crisis Line. This is not the first time we've had reports of this behavior or the first time we've had a GAO or Inspector General's report. It seems like it's there in a persistent and widespread, I don't know, the widespread is but way too farly spread circumstance at the VA. And I don't understand why it is that an entity, an organization its purpose is to care for those who served our country would have challenges like the Department of Veterans Affairs has. Any opportunity to explain this to me?
I don't have any specific answer to this. I will say, however, that work in the Veterans Crisis Line has got to be one of the most difficult jobs in the VA. Literally, they are trying to save lives hour by hour, 24/7, 365 days. It's a tremendous stress, and we need to be doing a better job of protecting our employees and taking care of our employees because they are the ones who are taking care of our veterans.
What prohibits or prevents the firing, the discharge of an employee in these circumstances? As I understand, they are still working. My experience in so many instances at the Department of Veterans Affairs in which there's been wrongdoing is that the individual who committed the wrongdoing remains at the VA, sometimes transferred to a different department, a different hospital. This is not a one-time circumstance in my experience. Why is it so difficult to discharge an employee for misbehavior?
Well, sir, I mean, you're absolutely right. And looking at the time from this GAO report and OIG report, the OIG report to where we are now, it's very frustrating. We, part of the dynamic for the VA is we need to follow a due process for employees who have been accused and allow the investigatory process to proceed and adhere to the recommendations for what disciplinary action is appropriate. It can be very frustrating, particularly from the outside looking in at that process, but it is a due process that our employees are entitled to. I will say, from a management perspective, if there is an employee that is not performing to the standards that we would expect, our first and foremost goal is to make sure that our veterans are protected from that bad behavior. And oftentimes that requires moving that employee to a different place to work while the investigation is underway. And I just want to point that out within the process, not trying to
Is that what
justify
happened
the
here?
larger picture.
Did that happen here?
In some instances, yes. I mean, there were 18 employees that were, ultimately investigated in this process.
Senator Blumenthal.